Hello, family. Peace and love to everybody. Hope everybody's having a good week. I know it's been a minute since I've been on, just a lot been going on, but I wanted to touch on this subject tonight. I've been looking forward to doing this for a while. This is probably going to be about a three-part series on trauma. This is going to be on trauma tonight, but before we get to that, I want to share a little music with you guys. I don't know how many of y'all have ever heard of Sister Rosetta Thornton, Mama Thornton. Uh, Let me see. I'm going to share it while we wait for some people to come in. I'm going to share this and we're going to, that's not what I wanted. I'm going to share this with you guys while people come in, and then we'll get to see where we at. Here we go. I'm gonna share this and then we'll get to our subject. All right, guys, I hope y'all enjoy this. It's raining and the people are so trying to stay in the house. How great it is. God makes me feel happy. Oh, yeah. Just to know we can start in the rain and love sing. Music. And the people are so sweet to stay here. Take some time listening to some of our old tunes our people. Let me tell you what I come in on. Up with. Oh, yeah. Just think this was their concert, guys, back in the day. This is under copyright of fair use. Under copyright of fair use, we're going to be talking about our people and what we have experienced. So this is under fair use. Didn't it rain, children? Rain, oh yes. Didn't it? Yes, didn't it? You know it did, didn't it? Oh yes, how it rained. I said it rained, children. Rain, oh yes. Didn't it? Yes, didn't it? You know it did, or didn't it? Oh my Lord, how it rained. You know it rained 40 days, rained 40 nights. Now make my God not fit me right. I when I get to heaven, gonna put on my robe, walk around in glory, tell the glad news. Look up David in the heat of the day, tune up the harp, I begin to play. I know it rain, you know it rain. Oh, how it rain, rain too long, all night long. Rain, 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 rain. Didn't it rain, children? Rain, oh yes. Didn't it? Yes. Didn't it? You know it did, or didn't it? Oh my Lord, how it rained. Don't play that guitar too. Some at the door, some crying, Brother Nora, can't you take on more? But no cried out, my friends. The angels got the key and you can't get in. I know it rain, you know it rain. Rain too long, all night long. Rain all day, rain all night. Rain, 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 children. Rain, oh yes. Didn't it? Yes. Didn't it? You know it did, or didn't it? Oh my Lord. How it rained. All right, family. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Didn't it rain? You know, our people, we have a long, long history
when it comes to music. And I tell people all the time, we're a rhythmic people. We love music and we love to dance and sing, and it's just in us. And I just love going back and reviewing some of our old music and things. um it puts us in perspective of where we are today in music. I mean, back in the day, you had to know how to sing. They didn't have any machines, no simple synthesizers, anything like that. It was straight music. So shout out um to let me see, which one did I get this from to make sure that I give them their shout out. The channel is Cerrito, Cerrito. So shout out to them. I used came from their channel. If you got a chance, go ahead and subscribe to that channel. They have a lot of old music and different things on that channel. So shout out to that channel uh, for having that piece. But hey, guys, I have a serious topic for tonight. And one of the reasons I wanted to come to you guys with this topic is just watching all of the stuff that has occurred in the last couple of months, pretty much since the polite trial concluded. It was going up to a head right before it concluded, but once it concluded, it really was a bombshell. Let me say this for all of my family, friends, and associates out there who may not know me. Some of you may not know me personally, except for in our casual meeting, or maybe our meeting on YouTube. But I am a mature woman who has seen a lot of the world, has had some great experiences, have met people from all over the world, different walks of life, and I am grateful for that. But in all of that, it helped me to grow. And so I am very grateful for that part of my life. And so I say all that to say this, guys. I am not a type of person that has time nor energy to beef with anybody or go back and forth with anybody. I believe that there's so much more important things in life and in this world that we could be doing than going back and forth with people and arguing back and forth and talking about people and people's mama. I left that stuff in high school. Well, I didn't even do it in high school. I think elementary. Um, it just to me is just a waste of energy. And don't get me wrong, I know that people can say things to hurt your feelings, and some things are very I would say has been very egregious. Some of the things that have been said about some people on these YouTube streets. And I believe that proper steps can be taken for that. But what I want us to get back to, for all of us content creators, unless you have a gossip channel, I mean, some people do have gossip channels, and I get that. But if you are not a gossip channel, let's get back to what whatever content you thought of when you created your channel, because there are people out here in this world that really needs help. They need help. They want help. They desire help. And then there are others who are looking for great relationships, friendships, whether it be in person or the internet or pen pal or however you have it. Um, there's a lot of positive work that we can be doing right now. And right now in this world that is really tipsy turvy, if anyone has been really watching, we've got a lot going on right now in this world that is very unsure, and people are feeling unsafe. People are feeling terrified. People are nervous, afraid. And so There are a lot of things that we can be touching on and doing um, more than going back and forth and talking about each other. So let's try to get over that, and let's get back to what we really love. Get back to what you love. Okay. Um, so in saying that, let me get into what my topic is: trauma. Trauma, our invisible friend. And I named it trauma, our invisible friend, because sometimes trauma is walking with us and we don't even know that trauma is there. Um, we have buried it so far and so deep. Trauma is really taking control of our lives. It's moving our lives and shaping our day to day walks. And we don't even realize that, hey, I am really dealing with something that every day that is with me. So I wanted to first of all, let's talk about trauma. First of all, let's define trauma. Let's look it up and define trauma. I know I was telling my daughter, we was talking about doing research, and when we had to do research in school, we didn't have Google. Everything had to be encyclopedia or library. Yeah, the young people now don't know nothing about this. But let me tell you something. That Google and uh is way better than that encyclopedia and having to go to the library and look up stuff. But anyway, let's look at trauma. Trauma, a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. I'm gonna put that up. Injury, danger, hurt, wound, wounding, sore, bruise, cut. A deeply disturbing or a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. A personal trauma like the death of a child. Trauma. Uh Injury, danger, hurt, wound, wounding, sore, bruise, cut. Let's talk about trauma. How many of us have experienced trauma in our lives, whether it be from someone dying, whether it be from an injury, whether it could be from a crime, or believe it or not, trauma can be even inherited. Um, and we'll get into all of that later, but trauma affects your life in so many ways. And that's why I called it the invisible friend, because a lot of times you don't even realize you're carrying a trauma. You think something traumatic happened and that was that, and you moved on, but not realizing that that trauma has shaped your life and your life decisions. That trauma has shaped the way you think. That trauma has shaped um, the way you see things, the way you perceive people, the way you, um, even to the down to where you live. Uh, that trauma molds and shapes your life, especially when that trauma has not been treated. And a lot of times we go without treating that trauma because, like I said, we forget that it's even there. We've put it out of our minds, or we've tried to put it out of our minds, or we've told ourselves that it didn't matter to us what happened to us. So we put that trauma in the trunk, as we say. We put it away, but that trauma has not went anywhere, people. Let me tell you something. It's like, have you ever, as a child, you fell off your bike and got a really bad scar? Or I remember my sister one time, she scraped her leg on this concrete wall we had outside of our house, and it did a big gash in her leg. And even to this day, that gash mark is still there. So when she looks down at it, she can see that injury occurred to her. A lot of us, that's what trauma is like. It's like that scar that we got from childhood, or a scar we got from a car accident or a scar we might have got from some kind of crime that has been done on us, and then that scar is on us, and here we are walking around with that scar. So we have to be mindful um, of when we have trauma, uh, what effects it has caused us. I put the contain adult language, please be advised. It's not necessarily, well, it will be a little bit of adult language in the end part or the middle part of the show of a video that I'm going to be showing. But when we're talking about trauma, pain, and hurt, it may be an adult conversational one that you may want to look at before you allow one of your teenagers or so to maybe hear about what we're talking about. But it's a good conversation, and I will be giving you some places and things to go where you can also research and talk more about trauma. But as I was saying, trauma is that thing, it's like that scar that you got when you fell off your bike, or the scar that you got from a car accident, or the scar that you got from maybe even a criminal act that was placed upon you. It's a scar. But the difference is that with that trauma, it's internal. You can't necessarily just look at a person and say, "Oh, they've been traumatized." We don't look in the mirror a lot of times and say, "Oh, I went through a trauma." We don't see it. Versus when you have a scar, you look down and you can see that scar and say, "Yeah, I remember when I fell off that bike." And you can call back the whole story. But with trauma, when things happen to us that are traumatic, a lot of times we hide it within us. It's a deep hitting thing, so we don't see it. We don't even understand that um, it's still there. So we're going to talk a little bit more about trauma. So we've looked at the definition of trauma, okay, which is a deeply distressing or disturbing experience, a personal trauma like a death of a child, um, injury, danger, hurt, wounding, sorrow, bruise, cut, etc. So let's go deeper into what a trauma is. I want to play this short video on what the trauma what trauma is. So let me go here. Okay, the disclaimer is going across the screen again, and I will put up the bigger one in a minute. Please, guys, as you come in, as you see this video, please share this video with your friends and family. This video is a really, really good one that's going to give some great information about trauma. And trust me, it says over 70% of the world. Think about that. 70% of the world has been traumatized at some point in their life. People have been traumatized at some point in their life. Think about that for a minute. That is a lot. When we talk about um, our lives and when we talk about um what we expect out of people and how people are reacting, we have never thought, maybe it's because of trauma. Isn't that something? Let me go here right quick. This video that I'm about to show you guys is actually from Psych Hub. So shout out to Psych Hub for this. And this is a great site to get information on mental health issues and get information on um, treatment, signs of mental health issues, and so forth. So, shout out to Psych Hub. Please go over there and subscribe, guys. Please subscribe. I have the fair use up. please be advised of our fair use is on the screen as I share, guys. Like I said, please like and subscribe, guys, and please share this video because, like I said, this is some good stuff to share with your family and your friends. So let's share this. Let's play this right here.
70% of people around the world will experience at least one traumatic event in their lifetime. Trauma is a threatening event or series of events that is emotionally or physically harmful, which may include violence, abuse, neglect, natural disasters, or losing a loved one due to a traumatic event. Trauma can be experienced directly or indirectly by a person, such as directly by working as a police officer, or indirectly, such as working as a therapist and hearing about the traumatic experiences of others. Major factors that contribute to an individual's response to trauma include culture, one's values, beliefs, and a way of seeing the world, social support system, if they have people in their lives who are truly supportive or not, and one's developmental stage, or where they are in their lifespan. For example, being a teenager or an adult. Some common reactions to trauma can include feelings of fear, anxiety, humiliation, guilt, shame, or betrayal. People may ask questions such as, why me? How other people respond to a person's trauma can also impact how a person experiences their trauma. For example, some people may not feel heard or understood by others, or others.
Now, this is important, guys, because a lot of times, with us not even knowing it, we kind of dismiss people's hurt and pain. We dismiss the trauma, whatever they've been through. We might say, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that," or "Oh, yeah, that happened to you," but um, or we'll say, "Oh, I don't even believe that happened to you at all." And because of those responses, negative responses that we may give someone who has been through a trauma, that affects that person even more. That's like putting salt in a wound, and that affects that trauma and how they deal with that trauma. So do y'all get what I'm saying there? The way you respond to someone who has been through trauma affects the way they respond to their own trauma. Now, that's something.
Others may downplay the importance, severity, and seriousness of their experience. This can be very hurtful and invalidating. A person can also develop more severe signs and symptoms of a trauma-related disorder, such as post-traumatic stress disorder or acute stress disorder. Some signs of a trauma-related disorder can include frequently feeling nervous, physical symptoms like stomach upset, upsetting thoughts.
Okay, I want y'all to see this. With the trauma symptoms, okay, you can experience even upset stomach with your trauma. And like sometimes you know how you always have a stomach ache and you don't know why, and they tell you, "Oh, you might have an ulcer, you may have this." It could just be from the trauma because of the nervous condition that the trauma may have caused in your body. So trauma is not even just going to affect you emotionally and mentally. It can affect you physically, guys. Let's keep listening.
Thoughts, hypervigilance, which is constantly feeling on edge, and if one is in danger, so one needs to be constantly on alert for threats. These symptoms can worsen with thoughts and reminders of the traumatic event. Therefore, people may try to avoid anything that reminds them of the event, but those symptoms can also be triggered for no external reason at all. Trauma in childhood can have long-lasting effects. In the CDC Kaiser ACE study, early childhood trauma showed a long-term and a negative impact on physical health and the likelihood of developing mental health and substance use disorders, and at a higher.
Okay, now y'all saw this. From the childhood trauma, it can develop mental issues, physical issues, and of course, that can cause substance abuse and other disorders. And it's also a high risk in suicide rates, guys. The trauma that we go through, like I said, is like an invisible friend that is walking with you, and you don't even know that it's there. That's how serious this issue is. That's how serious this subject is tonight, guys. So I want y'all to really listen, pay attention, and please share this with our family and our friends.
The risk of suicide. This study also showed that trauma can impact future job and education performance. Some specific factors that can help with trauma recovery include social support that focuses on forming strong emotional bonds and a sense of belonging and connectedness to others, therapy and other specialized treatment services that focus on trauma-related disorders, trauma-informed organizations, for example, schools and workplaces, ensuring access to basic needs and resources, such as food, education, healthcare, and housing. If you or a loved one may be experiencing symptoms of
Okay, now, guys, let me go back for a minute. I want to show you something. Okay, here we are with job and education. A lot of times we will find that children that have been through trauma do very poorly in school because they can't focus, guys. Um, Most of them have some type of anxiety issues. And when you have anxiety, you can't focus, you're nervous. And the first thing that a doctor will do is diagnose you with ADHD, which may be true, but it could be just trauma. It could be the effects from trauma that they're actually dealing with, or you're dealing with when you can't focus at work, you can't concentrate. Um, you do bad on assessment tests, because as soon as there's something changes, that anxiety kicks in. And that could be from an effect from a trauma that you have experienced in your life. So, as I said before, you see that this trauma is like that invisible person walking with you hand in hand, and you don't even know it. You're carrying that person along with you everywhere you go, and they're affecting everything you do. It's like that little devil that's whispering in your ear. You know how they said you have an angel on one side and a devil on the other? Well, that trauma is like that little devil whispering in your ear, and it's always directing you in a bad way. So we have to be aware of how that trauma can be affecting us, guys. Um, how that trauma is affecting our lives and our loved ones and people around us. You are not making great decisions when you are suffering from something like trauma, PTSD, uh, and things of that nature, because your brain is like under a fog or a cloud, because you're always constantly in battle with that trauma. That trauma has left a scar on you. It's left a scar on you physically and mentally, emotionally. It scarred you. And because the way trauma is so sneaky and hides, and it tells us, hide, forget about what happened to you. Don't worry about it. You're over it. We don't deal with that trauma. And by not dealing with that trauma, see, that trauma is dealing with us, and it's affecting our lives in the way that we function, in the way that we think, and the things that we do. So here's what I want to do now. Because as I said, guys, I want y'all to go ahead and please, like and subscribe. Um, please share this with your people. This is a um, very important subject. I'm going to show you guys a piece, and the reason why I'm doing this is we talk about the Black community a lot, um, in my circle and on these streets, these YouTube streets, and the effect, and how can we heal, how can we help Black people. And one thing that we have to understand is that Black people in America have been totally traumatized. Um, Even though you may think that seeing a Black man um, getting killed by police officers because he was walking down the sidewalk the wrong way, or he was in a place that he didn't look like he should be. If you think that doesn't affect you and that's not traumatizing you, you may want to think again. Um, I don't know too many black men in America that don't feel a sense of unease or a sense of fear when they see a cop car or hear sirens. Okay. Because we see so much of that trauma played over and over and over again on the news. It is absolutely no way it cannot be affecting you and traumatizing you over and over again. Um, the neighborhoods that we live in. And let me say this, guys. We're gonna, as we go further into this series on trauma, I'm going to take you to a doctor who did her study in trauma on um, the Black American from slavery till you know now, and how trauma can be also inherited, or how trauma, because the people who raised you and the people who raised them and the people who raised them had been through trauma that was never treated, that now those bad habits and those bad emotional situations were put on you, and how it affected you and how it's affecting your children and so forth. So trauma is it's a bad man, as they say, that has to be cut away, cut out. That's one friend you have to leave at the door. And so we need to learn more about this trauma and learn how to get rid of it. How can we drop this trauma where it's not affecting us? I want to play this one before I go to. I was going to actually do. 1 minute. I was going to do. Let's see. Let me do this one first. I was actually going to do this little clip, but I'm gonna do this one first. This one is also on trauma. I'm gonna do a little bit of this. This is now this guy right here, Dr. Van Dor, uh, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. He is the president of the Trauma Research Foundation. So he's done a lot of work in the field of trauma, and he has number one books written on this situation of trauma. And so I just wanted, there's a couple of pieces I wanted to play from him. Also, shout out to Big Think. This is from Big Think. Big Think channel. Please go over to Big Think and subscribe. We are putting this under fair use, guys, because we are doing this for teaching and studying purposes. So this is under fair use. But I want to play this for you guys, so we can continue to talk about how this trauma, this invisible friend, is walking with us every day, and we don't even realize it.
A good amount of the time. We all have jobs and situations that are really unpleasant. But the moment that the situation is over, it's over. The problem with trauma is that when it's over, your body continues to relive it. My name is Bessel van der Kolk. I'm a psychiatrist, neuroscientist, and author of the book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Now, guys, this is an awesome book. If you want to know more about trauma, awesome book. that helps you. And remember, in the first part of this, he says that even after the trauma is over, the body continues the trauma. This is what we want to get to, that the body is continuing that trauma. So, let me go back. I want to get to this part of the study.
And in the definition of PTSD, we write these people have been exposed to an extraordinary event that's outside of normal human experience. In retrospect, that shows us how ignorant and narrow minded we were, because it turned out that this is not an unusual experience at all. People usually think about the military when they talk about trauma, but at least 1 out of 8 kids in America witness physical violence between their parents. A larger number of kids get beaten very hard by their own caregivers. A very large number of people in general, but women in particular, have sexual experiences that were clearly unwanted and that left them confused and enraged.
Now, are y'all getting these numbers? 1 out of 8 children experience seeing their parents in some violent situation. Think about that. Children are getting beaten, and women having some sexual experience that was unwanted. Let's think about these things. Let's listen to what he's saying and think about, is this you or is this someone that you know?
So, unlike what we first thought, trauma is actually extremely common. There's a lot of debate of what a trauma is to this day. But basically, trauma is something that happens to you that makes you so upset that it overwhelms you. There is nothing you can do to stave off the inevitable. You basically collapse in a state of confusion, maybe rage, because you are unable to function in the face of this particular threat. But the trauma is not the event that happens, the trauma is how you respond to it. One of the largest mitigating factors against getting traumatized is who is there for you at that particular time. When, as a kid, you get bitten by a dog, it's really very scary and very nasty. But if your parents pick you up and say, "Oh, I see that you're really in bad shape, let me help you," that dog bite doesn't become a big issue because the foundation of your safety has not been destroyed. We are profoundly interdependent people, and as long as our relationships are intact, by and large, we're pretty good with trauma.
Okay, let me just say this. Remember when I said before we had talked about how um when how you respond to a person's trauma is how they respond to that trauma? This is what he's saying here, guys. We re-traumatize people when we respond in a negative manner. If a child comes and says that someone touched them wrongly and your reaction is negative, oh, it was you. Oh, what did you do? I don't believe you. That re traumatizes that person, that child. And because of that, now this child is going to internalize that trauma and it's going to affect them for the rest of their life till they get help. If a person, a woman has unwanted advancements um, in an intimate way that she did not want, and we say, "Oh, what did you do? You must have done something. Well, you shouldn't have been there. You shouldn't have went over there. Why did you go there with him?" That re-traumatizes that person. Or if that person comes out years later and say, "Hey, I'm going to tell my story," and then someone says, "I don't believe you. That didn't happen to you." We continue to re-traumatize people. That is on our head. That is like you walking up and stabbing that person physically. That's what it's like. You don't realize the damage that you are doing when you respond to people negatively that have been through a trauma. My mother used to always say, if you don't have something good to say or nice to say, don't say anything at all. We have to be more aware, guys, of what we're saying and what we're doing. And that is one thing that I've noticed on YouTube streets. And I guess it's because we feel like we don't have a personal connection with these people. So what we say doesn't matter. Or we're just being bullies in high school on the playground. But we need to realize something. They have bully laws out now because people who have been bullied, that is a trauma. And there are a lot of people who kill themselves after being bullied. There are people who have, excuse me, have taken their life. Let me rephrase for YouTube. There are people who have uh, uh, decided that they didn't have anything else to live for because of being bullied. They have decided they have nothing else to live for because of what people are saying about them or what people have put out on the internet. Some people cannot take more trauma in their lives. And that's like the icing on the cake, guys. And you have to ask yourself this. If something you say makes a person go and say, I no longer want to be here, and do something to themselves, can you live with that guilt? Can you live with that? So we need to be more mindful of people. I always say, live by the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Okay? So if you don't want anyone doing it to you or talking about you or traumatizing you, why would you go do it to someone else? See, so we see here that we re traumatize people when we respond to their trauma in a negative way, guys. We've got to do better than this because who wants that on their head? I don't. I really don't. I don't want to hurt someone who's already hurting. And most of us are hurting in some kind of way. That's why I said this internet can be a blessing or a curse, guys. But let's try to be a blessing to people. It's so much that people need. It's so much that you know, uh great things that could come um from, being on this net. So let's go on and see what else he says.
The problem with trauma is that it starts off with something that happens to us, but that's not where it stops because it changes your brain. Much of the
Now y'all heard this. Trauma changes your brain. And now we getting deep now. Remember that. Trauma changes your brain. Listen to this, guys.
imprint of trauma is in that very primitive survival part of your brain that I like to call the cockroach brain. There's a part of you that just picks up what's dangerous and what's safe. That when you're traumatized, that little part of your brain, which is usually very quiet, continues to just send messages. I'm in danger. I'm not safe. That event itself is over, but you continue to react to things as if you're in danger. We're talking about survival. We're talking about staying alive. And so some people are into fight flight, or on a more primitive level, people's brain shuts down and they collapse. You have these automatic responses that are not a product of your cognitive assessment, they're a product of your animal brain trying to stay alive in the face of something that part of your brain interprets as a life threat.
Okay, guys. Now this is good stuff. Because of the trauma, it changes the way your brain functions. Now let's think about this. It literally changes the way you function. And that's why I said a lot of times you're thinking under a cloud and don't realize. I tell my daughter this all the time. Sometimes we're can't see the forest for the trees. The brain, because of the trauma, the brain has changed. So now that little part of your brain that's normally quiet, it flares up. So instead of you actually literally being scared when something is scary, you're scared all the time. Anything can scare you. Anything can scare you. Everything scares you. So what happens is your anxiety is on alert 24/7. And who can live like that? Do you know what kind of stress that puts on your body? Think about it. Is that going to make you more paranoid? You think everybody's against you, everybody's after you? Can you imagine that? Living like that? And a lot of us do. So that trauma has literally changed the way your brain is functioning, guys. That's how serious this trauma is. This is not something that you can just wish away. This trauma is serious, guys. Very serious. Let's go on. I'll just skip a little bit.
Traumatized people have a tremendous problem experiencing pleasure and joy. But the core issue is our hormones and our physiological impulses that have to do with survival. Your body keeps mobilizing itself to fight. You have all kinds of immunological abnormalities, endocrine abnormalities, and that really devastates your physical health also. Oftentimes the physical problems are longer lasting than the mental problems. And the other thing that is terribly important is the impact of poverty, or the impact of racism, or the impact of unemployment. There's other societies that are much more trauma savvy than we are, where there is not an enormous amount of income inequality. Healthcare is universal, childcare is universal. A culture like that really.
Now, let me say this, guys. If you notice, he's talked about poverty, he talked about racism, talked about unemployment. Um, and when he says different societies, like with universal health care and stuff that we should have here in America and don't have, universal child care. Um, France has those things. If you knew what society, the citizens in France got, you would be totally upset and wonder why you live here in America. Um, we could do better, but see, we traumatize our citizens by lack of. Okay. And we're going to talk about poverty and racism and how that's affecting us and how it's traumatizing us. But did you notice within that trauma, it talked about the physical damage that it does and how long term it is? And, when you look at the statistics in the black neighborhoods or impoverished neighborhoods, um, they have a lot of physical ailments. And those physical ailments, a lot of them are caused by or affected by trauma. That's how serious this trauma is, guys. And that's why I said I want you to look at yourself and I want you to look at your family and your friends and say, is this something that we are dealing with? Because remember, that 70% of the world is affected by trauma. Okay? They've been traumatized or in some traumatized situation. So more than likely, the people in your family or in your close circle have been traumatized. Now ask yourself, out of those people in your family and out of those people um, that are in your friendship circle that have been traumatized, how many are getting help to heal? How many even feel like they need the help to heal? Because a lot of us that have been through trauma, we don't see the trauma as the problem. We see everything else externally as problems. We might say, oh, like I said, it said that it causes stomach upset. Well, most of us think we got an ulcer or we got some gastro problem. It could be trauma. See, some of us have nervous conditions. We have anxiety. We think that's something that, oh, we picked up, I guess, out of, osmosis or something. I don't know where we think we get it from, or maybe we inherited it. But a lot of that's from trauma. Some of us think we got ADHD, and it's literally effects from trauma that we're dealing with, guys, that we're dealing with. And poverty, racism, and these issues, these circumstances bring on trauma. Why? Because things happen in these circumstances. Okay? Things happen. So, guys, what do you think? I mean, I want you to really think tonight about trauma and what it is doing to us, um, personally, what it's doing to our families, what it's doing to our society, because America is on fire, guys. America is on fire. Matter of fact, most of the world right now is on fire, guys. And we have to look at why, what has happened, because trauma creates trauma, creates trauma, creates trauma. Okay, poverty is trauma. You're traumatizing a mass of people when they can't eat, when they can't, they don't, they're wondering where they're going to lay their head, where they're wondering where their children are going to lay their head at, where they can't get health care and all these things, guys. Then what kicks in is survival. So now it's the animalistic side of the human brain that kicks in and says, I just need to survive. And so people do things out of, I just need to survive. It's not necessarily that is who they are, that is who they would have been. But because of the trauma that was brought on by poverty, and lack of, they go to survival mode. So whereas if a man had food on his table, he wouldn't have went to the store and stole. Or whereas a young man who had a good job, he wouldn't have hit somebody over the head for their purse so he could pay for a hotel room the night, or help pay his mom's rent. Guys, we can close our eyes and say that poverty and things that's happening don't matter and don't affect. Let me clue you in on something. Poverty affects everyone, because eventually it's going to knock on your door. I tell people that with homeless when I'm out trying to help homeless, and I'm a big advocate for homeless, because number one, there should never be anyone in the world homeless. Okay, the world is too vast and we got too many resources. There should not be anyone homeless, and there should not be anyone hungry. So when you look at that, I tell people all the time, you might think that homeless situation is not affecting you, but it is. It's going to affect you. Number one, um, you know, in America, uh, when they go to the emergency room, your taxpayer dollars pay for that. When they, you know, go to a soup kitchen or they go to a homeless shelter, that is government money a lot of times, or people who reach in their pocket pay for that. So it's not, it's coming back in some kind of wave. When you have homeless people that have mental issues and they attack someone, or they have addict addiction problem, and they attack or they rob. See, you see where I'm going? You see where I'm going? Don't think, and I'm not saying all people that are in poverty and all people that have these issues do crimes, but poverty, and it's a statistic, brings on crime. The statistics show that when the society is thriving, there's less crime. makes sense. Okay. So, you know, all in that, we're dealing with trauma too. So, our society right now, I mean, we have a lot of people walk around hurting, guys. They're physically hurting, they're emotionally hurting. Um, and sometimes the way people respond to you is out of their hurt, not necessarily out of who they are. But, like I listen to you guys a lot and I go from channel to channel, just kind of listening when I'm in bed and so forth, or I'm driving in my car. And I do it a lot for research, and I'm curious about how we are thinking and how we're doing as a society. And sometimes what people say and the way they respond is out of hurt. It's not necessarily maybe who that person is, or you can't see that person. That person may not be able to really explain who they are because they're coming from a place of hurt. And when a person is hurt, they'll say some things they don't mean, or they'll say them the wrong way. It's kind of like I tell people, never respond when you're emotional. Wait. My mother used to tell us she would never spank us when she was upset because she never wanted to hurt us. So she would wait, always wait till she calmed down before she would spank us. Um, because that way she was in control. But when you're angry or when you're hurt, you lash out and you retaliate, and you say a lot of things and do things that normally you wouldn't do. So a lot of times I see on YouTube that a lot of us, we respond out of hurt and anger, and we lash out, and then later on some of us come back and apologize because we say, maybe I shouldn't have said it that way. So just a tip, sometimes people are responding out of pain and hurt. um I've had some people say things about me on this YouTube that don't know me at all, and I don't know them. um and I know that a lot of that is out of hurt and pain of who they are. They're going through things maybe they don't even realize. And so, for me, I mean, it is what it is. I don't take a lot of things like that personally, because I understand that, we as people, we go through things and we experience things. And, I don't know what that person's going through that day or what happened in their life that day, or even if they got a place to lay their head, that night. So I just kind of, brush a lot of stuff like that off. Because I understand that, we're human. We all go through stuff. We all deal with stuff, you know. And, like I said, it is what it is. But I want us to be more mindful of what we say to people and how we say it, guys, because we could be re-traumatizing people. And I know that's something that none of us want to do, is re-traumatize a person. Because what you don't want is that karma to come back on you. Okay? I'm a strong believer in karma. I believe in what goes around comes around. What goes up must come down. So I believe in that. So I try not to do things that are going to cause hurt. But then again, I want to give another shout out to Big Think. Please, guys, go over there and subscribe. They got some great stuff on that channel, with Dr. Van Colt. Um, great, great, great information. Y'all, guys, if you can, try to get a couple of his books on trauma. I want to play this clip, and then at the end, I'm going to play 8 Signs of Trauma. This clip is from um, this clip that I'm about to play now, guys, is from the streets of Philly, and it's called "The City of Zombies" documentary. Is by let me see, my boy uh TG Tommy G channel. I want to play this now. Let me put up my advisory because this I am most definitely going to need the advisory on. We're going to need the warning advisory on it. And then I'm going to put the um, disclaimer at the bottom. Okay, I got the fair use um, disclaimer at the bottom of the screen. I want to give a shout out to Tommy G. This is his piece that we're about to see, guys. And it's called, and I'm going to skip through it. Oh, this one's Pennsylvania. That was Philly. What was the other one? This the one I want? Okay. I think this is the one I wanted. Um, if not, I'll go to the next one. But um, like I said, this guy right here, he did documentary in different streets, documenting the street life in what we would call the hood. And so I wanted to show a few clips from this because I want to show you that living this life, how it can cause trauma to our children, to us, to our parents. Um, and we don't, because we live it every day, we don't realize how it's traumatizing us over and over again. So I want to play this and we'll skip through a couple of, but shout out to Tommy G. And if you guys have a chance,
City of Walking
go to
Zombies,
his
a place some call hell on earth. There are many people that might
to
be
his
shocked that a place like Kensington even exists in the United States of America. It's wild, it's lawless, it's sad, and it's real. Today, we take a deep dive into a city consumed by drugs and addiction. If we were to go here on our own, how would it go for us? Death?
Yeah. This zombie land. All killers and shit. You hear me?
Well, there's a guy injecting right now.
Look. They about to try to bring you back. The ambulance right there.
People need to see shit like this, man.
It's been a long road trip. We've driven from Milwaukee, so we've spent...
To the bridge.
They live under the bridge?
Yeah, they live always under bridges, always. Because they get moved off the blocks.
They evicted them.
Yeah, they evicted them.
Is this a place to keep your head on a swivel?
There ain't nothing to play with down this joint. He heavy connected with the city. It ain't too many people that don't know who he is, so he only deal with niggas that's verified. Like, you feel what I'm saying? You can't really be by yourself. You be by yourself. You gonna be 8. You gonna get 8.
Well, shall we go on tour?
Yeah, come on.
I hear that there's $1 billion of heroin sold here a year. What would you say the drug of choice is here for these people?
Meth, heroin, subs, everything.
Red subs.
You said what?
We in there. Yeah, I can't be nobody cameras.
Yeah, you can't. Well, nobody, I can. I'm a rapper. You heard me? We about to slide over there under the L so I can show you where all the foods and should be at.
Okay. I didn't bring one with me today. What's up, big dog? I'm Tommy G. Nice to meet you, man.
This is how you know when you're in the trenches, when you look at the stores.
Yeah.
Like when you go into
Wig
the
shops,
neighborhood,
pawn shops,
yeah,
liquor.
pawn shops, because there's people always trying to sell shit. The clothes is cheap. A lot of corner stores over here to a lot of people who get high. That's where they stay at. And the cops, they come around heavy like every day, clear it out for a little bit, but they can't stop. It's like too many people. It's like a house that always dirty. You clean it, then it get dirty again.
So the people that are leaning, what are they on?
Most likely, when you see them leaning, they are fentanyl.
Because I've heard some people call this the city of zombies.
Yeah. This zombie land. All killers and shit. You hear me? They took over this whole area. Like this day land right here.
Imagine being a single woman and you have somewhere to go around here. That would be tough, huh? So they call Philly the city of brotherhood, right?
Yeah.
Is it a friendly city?
Nah.
No?
Nah.
When did it lose the reputation of being friendly?
I mean, it's been like that since we was born. You the wrong bitch in this city, somebody gonna want to do something to you. You make too much money, somebody gonna want to do something to you. You pull up in the wrong car, somebody gonna want to do something.
So there's a crab in the...
Okay, so did y'all hear that? First of all, just walking through this neighborhood, parts of this neighborhood, we're seeing people who are messed up. I mean, they're addicts. They're laying there, like they said, they're calling it the city of zombies. How can you not live in this area and not be traumatized by this and even scared to walk to the store? Can you imagine? being scared, your child scared to walk through the store, scared to go to a friend's house. You scared to let them go to a friend's house because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if somebody's going to attack them, if it's going to be a drive-by shooting. This is trauma, guys. This guy just said here, he said, if you're with the wrong woman, you could get shot. If you're driving the wrong car, you could get shot. If you're making too much money, you could get got. Think about this trauma, guys, that we are dealing with every day. And this trauma is affecting the way you think because now you're paranoid. Okay. You're paranoid. So if someone just wanted to walk up and be nice to you, you wouldn't even know how to have a nice conversation with them. You want to know what the hell they want. You see what I'm saying? Guys, we got to think today. We got to start thinking, guys. This is what we're dealing with. That's also, we don't have time for petty BS. We got real issues, real life issues that need to be addressed in our lives, in our families, and in our communities. This is going on every day, guys. Take a look at this. Advisory is up, guys. This is not a video for children. And our copyright is up. Our fair use is up, guys. Fair use is up. We're using this for criticism, reporting, and education. Most definitely education. Shout out to Tommy G again.
Bucket mentality. Yeah, that's the way Philly is. Look, just get this footage like this for the train at. Like, imagine just going on the train. This is what you.
Now look, going to the train station, they have to walk past all of this, guys. Just trying to get on the train to go to work or school. Think about this.
He was injected into his armpit, dude.
Yeah.
I've never injected, but I don't think that'd be my
never
first.
Seen nobody do that?
Behind the leg, arm, toes. I've tried some drugs in my day, but I don't think I ever want to do something that makes me.
What's up, young? This is the dangerous part down this joint.
The girl,
yeah,
shit on TV, right there, smoked the nigga right
yeah, she shot the boy in the joint.
Yeah.
Two people just got dropped right there. Yeah,
across the street right there at that convenience store.
I feel like the more you see this, the more you say like your own body is special, you know, because you don't want to.
Yeah, but a lot of us come from families that had drug addicts. Yeah, like either mom was on drugs because the dad wasn't there, the dad was on drugs, and the mom, and they was fighting a lot. So we come from broken homes and drug use. 9 times out of 10, we got a cousin. Everybody got a brother, a cousin, or a sister that's out here running around. Everybody.
Okay, guys. Now I want y'all to think about what he just said. Did y'all hear what he just said? He said that most of us we've had someone that was on drugs. Our mom, our dad, our cousin, sisters. Think about this trauma, guys, that we deal with every day, and we don't realize that this trauma we have internalized it. And like I said before, it's like that invisible friend that is walking with us, that is directing our lives, and we don't even realize it. We heard the doctor say that trauma affects your brain. Your brain starts to function differently with trauma because now you're in fight or flight mode all the time, guys. Think about that. All the time, you're always in a panic, or your anxiety is up, or you're paranoid. And then it starts to weigh on you physically. Stress. We know that stress is one of the number one killers in America. Stress causes heart attacks. Stress causes strokes. Stress causes all kind of different ailments in your body, guys. We even saw in the video earlier where it talked about that the trauma can cause you with stomach aches, stomach pains. You think you got an ulcer. You're dealing with internalized trauma. And we have to look at it, guys. I am, like I said, on the next part, I am going to show Dr. Joy, who is going to talk about trauma from slavery, what happened to our people till now, and why we are functioning the way we function. See, you got to understand something with trauma. Trauma, number one, can be inherited, okay? But not only that, but trauma it's passed on. And what I mean, for instance, if a lot of times if you were in an abused home and your parents abused you, and always yelled and called you names, called you the B word, MF, this and that and the other. Some kids, my daughter's a teacher, and some kids in the first and second grade don't even know their real name. Okay, when she called their real name, they don't answer because they would never were called their real name. They was called every name in the book but their real name, and that's a fact that our teachers are dealing with. That's because their parents were traumatized. Now the parents is traumatizing the children. And one of the responses to a child being traumatized is that that child, a lot of times, um, that child, a lot of times, when they're in school, if someone steps on their toe, instead of them saying, "Oh, that's okay," like, say, "Oh man, I didn't mean to step on your toe, excuse me," instead of that child saying, "Okay, that's cool," the first thing the child does is hit them. That's because that child is dealing with trauma and they don't even understand it. Or that child, uh, they may ask the child to do something and the child might curse at them. Why? Because that child is dealing with trauma. Most foster children are dealing with trauma. And so their response is fight or flight. Most of them are very destructive in some kind of way, whether it be fighting, stealing, lying. A lot of them cannot connect to people, no personal connections with people. Trauma, guys, trauma. We are dealing with trauma. Our people are dealing with trauma. And you want to know why our people respond the way they do on this internet? It's because most of us are dealing with trauma. We're dealing with that invisible friend that's walking with us and tapping us on the shoulder, telling us, hey, everybody's against you. Hey, they're talking about you. So you need to punch and fight. Hey, see, that's what that trauma is doing. But that trauma is not only eating away at small things, that trauma is eating away at your life because with that trauma, you can't have healthy relationships. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to attack. If something goes wrong, instead of you sitting down and having a conversation about, okay, let's talk about what's happening, you're going to go and attack. You shouldn't have done this. Why are you doing this to me? You know, instead of you having a simple conversation, well, I didn't like the way that went, you're ready to fight. Trauma, because that's the that it has been brought up in you. It has been that trauma is sitting there waiting to pounce like a lion on a mouse. And most of us don't get help for that trauma because we forgot about it or we hid it or we said it didn't affect us. Most people who have sexual trauma come out in different ways. Some of them are very sexual, and some of them are not sexual at all from that trauma. You know, that trauma comes out in so many different ways. But normally, their intimate life is not healthy. They do things to get a bigger high, or they do things to get more satisfaction, and some do things because that pain is something they understand. That pain is something they say, okay, I feel this pain, I can control this pain right here because I know what this pain is. Versus, I don't know what's going on in my head. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I don't know why I'm so anxious. I don't know why everything is making me nervous. I don't know why I'm ready to scream. See, they can't handle that, not knowing that's from the trauma. So when they do something to hurt themselves, they say, okay, I understand that pain. So they're more comfortable with that pain, if that makes sense to you. That's what trauma does. So I'm going to play one more clip from a sister who is going to give us signs of trauma. Again, I want to give a shout out to Tommy G. He did that clip on Kensington, and he has a few that we might show a couple of more later on, guys. But go over to his channel, check out his work. Um, he did some good reporting um, on those streets, and he shows a lot of different areas. So check that out. But like I say, guys, this video here, share this video with your family and friends. Just keep sharing it, keep sharing it, keep sharing it, keep sharing it. Because if you keep sharing this video, enough of us will see it and maybe we'll click in that the way I'm responding, this anger, this nastiness, or this sorrow, or this depression, I'm doing this because I got trauma I haven't dealt with. And I tell my family and I tell people that I do life coaching with and stuff all the time that uh mental situations, mental illness or mental problems or emotional problems, you can either deal with them or they're going to deal with you. And 9 times out of 10 they'll deal with you. If your life is in a whirlwind of mess all the time or confrontation, you need to look at why. That could be something internally happening in you that is causing things to happen on the outside in your life with people you deal with your jobs. You can't keep a job. You can't keep a healthy relationship. Um, you can't keep good friendships. You don't connect good with your family and just you have to look at why, guys. Why? And one thing I told a young lady one day, I said, what I learned about being in a long-term relationship, being married over 23 years, I learned more about me than I did him, because you have to question yourself. You have to question why you do the things you do or why you respond the way you respond. And when you start to become healthy, you are able to do that a lot more. And it opens up a lot of doors for you. And it takes a lot of pressure off because you start to get an understanding about your life and about who you are and why you do what you do. And that helps you to direct your life in a positive way, the way you want it to go, not necessarily the way life has told you it was going to go, or just watching things happen and you just following along with it. You can really direct your life in what you want to happen. So I'm going to play this last piece and then we're going to get out of here, guys. And like I said, please share this video, guys. This is an important video. This one right here um is important. Let me pull it up. I got the other thing up. This is important, guys, to share this video. This piece right here. Okay, this piece right here is from Steph Ion. She is a therapist and great young woman. Please go subscribe to her channel. But she's going to talk to us about the steps of or the 8 signs of trauma. So if you have these in your life, guys, pay close attention and see if this could be what's going on in your life.
Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, welcome to my channel. My name is Stephanie Yates Anyabuile, Steph Anya for short, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. In today's video, I'm going to be recapping some of the things this is when I have clients come to me and say, I don't feel anything. And sometimes clients can actually be very high functioning and still have this feeling of numbness. I've had clients explain it to me. It's like I'm moving in the world and things are happening and my body might be responding, but my mind is just not connected with what's happening in my body. Maybe there are certain things that they know should scare them, or there are certain things that they know should bring them pleasure, and they just cannot experience that. That's because your parasympathetic functions have shut down. And that again can be a result of trauma, is that you are unable to fully feel what's happening to within you. It could be touch even, but really I'm seeing it more often with emotional responses, just that feeling of numbness, almost like an out of body experience. I can do a whole separate video talking about ways to address these trauma responses, but I will say with parasympathetic responses, if you've been shut down, there are certain things that you could try to kind of re-engage your parasympathetic system. Something like acupuncture, for example, might be a way to reconnect your mind and body so that you don't feel as disassociated. Here's a big one I want to take a little time talking about, which is that your body is always in an aroused state. And this is really in response to danger. It's a perceived sense of danger. And so if your body is constantly in a state of arousal, imagine when you are like running and your heart is beating, you're sweating. Imagine someone whose experiences that feeling 24/7. No one can survive with those high adrenaline levels, with those high cortisol levels. No one can survive doing that. So they try to find alternative ways of calming down since their body is not able to naturally do it on its own when it recognizes that there is no sense of danger. That's the problem, is that the body is not recognizing that you're no longer in a space of danger. So how do they address it? They try to manually calm down. This is where I might have clients who are perpetually masturbating, for example. The feeling of masturbating is giving them a break from that aroused state. They might turn to drugs to calm down, alcohol. They might cut themselves, right? So sometimes we can't make sense of why a person would become a cutter, for example. But if your body is always on high alert, then the process of pain at least is a very streamlined, centralized feeling that you can understand and make sense of. And it can distract from the feeling of anxiety and angst that they're having.
Now, remember we talked about this before, guys. That feeling, see, that feeling of pain, you can recognize, you understand that versus the anxiety feelings that you may be feeling. You can understand that pain, of causing yourself that physical pain. You can understand that that's something you get. But a lot of times these anxieties and these feelings of flight and these feelings of fear or um different feelings of paranoia, we can't understand why we're going through that. So this is something else to look at.
Within their body with no explanation. Similarly, starving yourself might be another way of centralizing that pain into your stomach. And so these are ways that we try to address that feeling of arousal to calm ourselves. And so sometimes, especially with people who might have to deal with addicts and things that might not make sense to them, why you would continuously make these choices. But when you're dealing with so much arousal in your body that it's overwhelming, you look for a way of escape for dealing and processing. So that I thought was very interesting from the training. Number 3 is self-loathing. Another concept that Vander Kolk would often go back to is that when a person is traumatized, whether that be in childhood or adulthood, whether it be physical assault, whether it be sexual assault, whether it be a natural disaster, whatever form of trauma we're talking about, people often find a way to blame themselves for their trauma.
Now, let me say this right there for that self-loathing. We find this in children a lot and in sexual assault cases where people will blame themselves for what happened.
So had I put my seatbelt on, had I just not talked back to my parent, had I XYZ, then maybe this trauma wouldn't have happened to me. So self-loathing is another major predictor that a person is still in a traumatized state. Number 4, you might be rigidly stuck in the past. This is really the direct work of your thalamus and your prefrontal cortex in the brain. The thalamus is your sensory integration. So this is how you recognize, for example, if you are touching a pet, you are feeling fur. Or if you hear whooshing sound, you might be able to recognize it as a car. That's what your thalamus, as part of its job, is that sensory integration. So you can make sense of the things happening around you in your senses. Your prefrontal cortex is the timekeeper. So this is the part of your brain that helps you view things chronologically. When you have experienced severe trauma, You may be in a position where you're rigidly stuck in the past in ways that we'll talk about later that affect you in other ways. But essentially, it can be hard for you. For example, if you see a long pipe, your brain rationally would let you know, okay, I'm near a water hose. But if you have been bitten by a snake in the past, or you had a family member who maybe told you a story that traumatized you about them being bitten by a snake, you might jump, scream, run, think that you're seeing a snake, right? And if this is continuously happening where you're seeing something that is relatively benign, but you are jumping to moments in the past that this was actually a danger for you, then that might be another sign that you are traumatized. Being
Let me say this, guys, and this is something personal. Um, what she's saying right here is so true. Because when I grew up, we grew part of where I grew up, um, in my younger years, we lived in a black neighborhood in Tennessee. And the neighborhood, they built the black neighborhood over a dump. So by building over a dump, there were snakes everywhere. There were garden snakes, copperheads, you name it. There were always snakes. You couldn't play if there was grass there. You could not play there. Um, we walked down the street, literally looking up if we could. If there were overhanging trees, we would walk on the other side of the road because snakes would get in the trees and they would drop out of the trees. um the streets would be covered with squish snakes, and this is a true story. So I didn't realize that was so traumatizing to me, but as she said, I can see a rope on the ground or anything, and if it's wiggly looking like a snake, I jump, automatically panic. When if it's a worm that's too long, I jump. So this had traumatized me, and this was when I was younger. As you know, of course, we moved on into better neighborhoods as they, my father advanced or my mother advanced. Um, but it had traumatized me, and I didn't realize that I had that trauma. Probably until I was way grown, and I realized, you know what, I don't just have a fear of snakes. I am truly traumatized by snakes, and I've had to deal with that trauma by facing that fear of those snakes. But I was really traumatized by them as a child. So, like I said, that trauma can be hidden in us, or we put it away and not realize that we're going through that trauma and that we're carrying that trauma with us and how that trauma is affecting our lives. So, that's why I want you to share this video, and just try to be mindful of what is happening in your life and in the lives of those that you love.
rigidly stuck in the past, difficulty integrating what's happening to you right now. Number 5, speechless terror. Speechless terror is activated by a certain part in our brain where when we are in a certain situation that feels traumatizing or feels dangerous, we might resort to not being able to speak at all, becoming mute in certain situations. So if you recognize that maybe typically you're a very verbal person and able to speak, but in certain situations you completely shut down and cannot speak, that might let you know that there are situations from your past, or maybe the situation you're experiencing within that moment, that have been traumatizing. Next, loss of self. This is a really important thing to pay attention to, because one thing that Vanderkolk talked about in the training is that when you've lost a sense of yourself, that also means that you lose a sense of other. If you can't acknowledge or discern what is you, it's hard for you to separate and distinguish what is other. So there might be situations where that situation or person might be a danger, but you view yourself as the danger because you cannot distinguish between the two. So if you feel like you have lost a major sense of yourself, your identity, who you are, particularly within the world, so you can make sense of the world around you, that could be a result of trauma. physical immobility. One of the things that Vanderkolk talked about was having certain traumas be physical, where you are actually told by your perpetrator not to move. And so, if you are in certain situations like that could be physical or sexual trauma, maybe even if you were in a car accident, something like that, where if you would have moved, then maybe you would have gotten cut with a shard of glass, or maybe if you were getting a spanking and if you would move, you get hit in the face, hit in the eye, you learn that your safest response is not to move at all. So again, if you find yourself in certain situations, let's say you're driving and you've been in a car accident before, and you notice when a certain color car passes you, you completely freeze up. That physical immobility may be a sign that you might have trauma work that you need to begin the process of doing. And lastly, the most important one for me as a therapist, the thing I needed to hear to process some of the work that I'm doing with clients, is difficulty learning new information. This
Bingo. Okay. Have to stop here, guys. Have to stop here. For my Black people, this right here is something we need to hear. Difficulty learning new information. We have a problem accepting new information. We seem to reject it, or we seem to not hear it at all. A lot of times someone can be giving us the facts, absolute facts about something, and we will not hear one thing they say. We could give some of our people facts about Santa Claus is not real, and they will argue you up and down why he is and why they believe that he is. Even though if we showed everything in the book that states that Santa Claus is not real. Facts, family. And this also, for those of us who are teachers and scholars and doctors, therapists, and things of that nature, it gives us a better understanding too. A lot of times when we're constantly repeating ourselves, when we're trying to um, get people to see something in a different light or a different perspective, that that blockage could be coming from trauma. So remember that difficulty learning new information, guys. Trauma.
this is one of those things that was very relevant to me as a therapist, because often I have clients that I'm seeing where it feels like we're making breakthroughs. It feels like they are learning new things that should help them make decisions that they're more proud of. But what we see instead is that there's almost this cyclical nature to break through, get into real world, practice the change, get right back to their regular homeostasis or status quo. And so when that happens, it can be really frustrating because you're thinking, hey, I was really excited to write this part in the progress section of the note, and now we're right back where we started. But when a person has experienced trauma, it's difficult for their mind to process new information and learn new information. That's why a lot of times when you are working with or dealing with people who were traumatized, especially at young ages, some of the ways that they cope with that might feel immature to another person who is more fully developed. And that's because their learning process may have been stunted at that age, where they're not continuing to develop due to having to be preoccupied again with a lot of the things we talked about earlier. If you're rigidly stuck in the past, if you can't turn off those alarm signals in your body, that's so much that you're having to deal with on a consistent basis, that being able to actually be able to incorporate and integrate new information into that, the timekeeping, that chronological understanding of life might be impossible for them at a certain point. People who were traumatized. And so when that happens,
Okay,
I have
guys.
clients that I'm
Okay.
seeing.
So I wanted to bring it back, which I'm not trying to get her face that ugly, but I was trying to bring it back to just this trauma. Let's see here. The difficulty processing information. Okay. Um, I wanted to bring it back to here because difficulty processing new information. And then we're going to close out. But guys, difficulty processing new information, it's a couple of things with the trauma. With the trauma, we as we learned earlier, trauma it reprograms the brain. The brain starts to function differently once you go through a trauma. So you're not thinking clearly um because you're in fight or flight mode um pretty much. And not only that, but because the brain is trying to rationalize what is happening in your body, it's trying to rationalize, why do I feel this numbness? Why do I feel this anxiety? Why do I feel this fear? Why do I feel this burst of arousement? Why do I feel this burst of anger? And so the brain is trying to process all of this at one time. So when it's trying to do all of that processing, um, it it, it doesn't have room to process anything else or other things, or it's processing very slowly. When trauma happens to us young, a lot of times we stop at that age. Our learning, our maturing process stops. So we think um, immaturely for or immature for our age. So, for instance, you might say she thinks very immature. Now, I know a young woman who had trauma happen to her um, at around 14, and she has been unable to mature into her adulthood properly because her mental state is still that little girl that was 14, um, trying to be rescued or trying to be saved. So we have to understand that trauma is huge. It's a big, green, hairy monster, guys, that we're walking around with like that invisible friend, holding hands and taking them everywhere we go, not understanding that they're affecting our lives. Every aspect of our life is being affected by this trauma. And when we look at the Black community, you have to realize that you've been impacted by so much trauma that there is no way possible that most of us are functioning on a healthy, mature level because we're dealing with all that trauma. And that trauma, we're being traumatized every day. We were traumatized. Our let me put it this way, our great grandset ancestors were traumatized, and their kids were traumatized, and then their kids, and so forth and so on. And our grandparents, and our grandmother, and then our parents, and then us, and then we traumatized our children. So in a lot of our households, that trauma has continued without any therapy, without any healing, without even realizing what is going on. It's kind of like um diabetes that a lot of Black people we inherit or we get by bad behavior, because diabetes, a lot of times we get it because we have been taught to eat wrong. We eat poorly. So we eat too much sugar and too many things that causes diabetes. Well, that was something that we got from our parents. They got from their grandparents. And we pass it on to our kids. And so we have an obesity problem in our communities, which infects in sight causes the diabetes. Well, trauma's the same way, guys. Our great ancestors were slaves, and so they were traumatized with whipping and rapes and all the things that happen with poor food, with long bad hours, with living in poverty, squalor. And then that was passed on to our grandparents, and then our grandparents passed on our kids, because you got to realize something. We were taught from slavery that beating was a way to get people to do things, to listen. Beating was a way of control, uh, talking down on people, being demanding, being the boss was a way of control. So we grew up with this mentality that in order for someone to listen to me, I need to be the boss. I need to be overly demanding. I need to beat. I need to show my strength. So um, there's a lot of ways that we've been traumatized. And then we wonder why we act the way we do. We wonder why our communities are the way that they are. It's trauma, guys. It's unresolved, unhealed trauma, period. The way we talk to each other on this internet and the way we treat each other without kindness, without love, without understanding, trauma, guys, trauma. Now, not all of us, some of us could just be nasty, but the majority of our people, we do things out of trauma, out of that hurt, out of that fight or flight. Guys, it's fight or flight. And we have to deal with that today. We have to deal with that. If you want to help your people, if you want to help, first of all, let's do like Michael Jackson. Let's start with the man in the mirror. Number one, you want to change your life, you have to start with you. You want to change your family, you have to start with you. You want to change your community, you have to start with you. You have to heal. And then you have to know where you're going in the direction you want to go in. You have to stop letting that trauma rule your life. You have to stop letting that trauma be the driver. As we say, Jesus, take the wheel. Right now, trauma has the wheel. And that's why it's tearing up everything in your life, your relationships, your job, your school. Everything seems to be falling apart and in a whirlwind. That's because of the trauma. Uh, your lack of being able to communicate with people, being able to share, being able to love. That's that trauma. The trauma has the wheel, guys. Not being able to sit down and have a decent conversation with your spouse, not being able to work out problems without fighting and arguing and screaming and shouting and calling each other names. Not being able to have a decent conversation without calling someone a B or an M or whatever. Trauma, guys. And we got to do better. We got to do better. Because the world is on fire right now. And the world is on fire, guys, because people are dealing out of that trauma, that fight or flight. All the stuff that's happening in Israel, all those people are traumatized now. And from now on, if they weren't traumatized before, they're traumatized now. And so everything that they do from this point on will be fight or flight. Everything will be a threat to them. Everybody will be a threat to them. Even if the peace comes over for the next 5 years and they get put in paradise, they won't see it as paradise, because they will always be on the edge of fight or flight because of the trauma. What's happening in Africa, in Darfur, and you know in the Sudan and all of that. All these people are traumatized, guys. Now in the Ukraine and Russia, trauma. The destruction in Haiti, trauma. The fires in Hawaii, trauma. So everybody is in fight or flight mode. And that's why the world is on fire, and we have to start to heal. And the way we do that is we start with ourselves, and then we start with our families. So, guys, I am asking you, please, please share this part 1 of this trauma series video. And I'm going to do a part 2 and more likely a part 3 where we're going to keep diving deeper into trauma and what the effects are and how do we begin to heal. How do we begin to heal? This first thing is to recognize what trauma is and how trauma is affecting us. The next part will be about how trauma is affecting us and how it has affected our community. Then that last part will be the effects and healing. So, guys, as always, thanks again, guys. I love you guys. Copyright has been up. Thank you guys. Please subscribe to all of the different channels that I said. Shout out to Psych Hub. Shout out to Tommy G, and shout out to Stephanie. I um, I don't know why I keep wanting to say Ayana. It's not. It's Anna. Shout out to her and her channel. Go over and subscribe to those channels, guys. These are great channels um, to look at. If you get a chance, look up Dr. Vanderkult, and he's the president of Trauma Research Foundation. He also has several #1 bestsellers out there on trauma. So look that up, guys. Share, share, share. Let's start helping our community, helping our people. But most of all, let's start at home, helping our families. The Bible says that charity starts at home. So let's start there, guys. Let's work on us, that man in the mirror, and our families, and then we can spread it out from there. We can spread the love. Thanks, guys, for listening. Please subscribe uh, to my channel. Please like my channel. Those likes mean a lot because as those likes go up, um, they hits the algorithms more people get to see it, and this is one that I really really want people to see because this is important. This is probably one of the most important videos that you will ever see because it's about us, you, me, our family. So please share this video, guys. um we can talk about it. I usually read my comments after the show. So please, guys, you know, drop a comment. We can always talk. If it's something you want to talk about on the next video, you can just put it in the comments. I'll take a look at it and we can talk about it. I want to give a shout out to Sadri. I want to give a shout out to AT. I want to give a shout out to Rocky Rock. Um, TG, just shout out to my #1 supporters and so forth. And I had someone else I wanted to give a shout out to. She always leaves a comment in my comment thing, but I can't. It doesn't skip my mind. Y'all know when you get older, it's so funny. When you get older, the mind just don't hold stuff like it used to. You be like, okay, I'm gonna remember this, and you tell yourself, I'm gonna remember it, child, before the minute is up, it's gone. But like I said, I want to give a shout out to those people. I don't know where's my other shout outs at. Well, anyway, I'll write them down next time because I had a couple more shout outs I wanted to shout out to. But guys, want to give a shout out also Neo X, Sister Nandy, shout out to Queen Throne. I watch these ladies. I like some of their information. Um, shout out to all of my YouTube friends and associates. So guys, like I said, share this video. Let's get this thing right, guys. Let's help our families. Let's dig deep and get our families on the right path to healing, because if we're not healed mentally and physically, we can't go forth. Uh, a sick person can't work. Okay. You need to be healthy. And if we're going to build a better community, a better world, we have to be healthy. And we have to be healthy mentally, uh, physically, and emotionally and spiritually. All right, guys. So I love you guys. Thanks a lot for sharing this time with me. Please share this video. Um, Again, much love. I will be back at you. Oh yeah, guys. If you get this video, listen to this video today. Tomorrow, which is October, I want to say the 20 let's see, 20, let's see, fit, not tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. So tomorrow's Friday. Let me look at the date. Yeah, the 27th at 7 p.m. I will be back on. I'm doing an online yard sale. And then Saturday, I'm actually doing a yard sale at my home. But I have a lot of jewelry and handbags and stuff I need to get out. I'm doing renovation and painting on my home, so I can move to a new one. So I need to get rid of a lot of inventory. So tomorrow at 7 p.m. I will be back on. I think I'm gonna come on my YouTube. I know I'm gonna be on my Facebook page with an online sale, so you guys can check that out as well. But I will be back at you guys next week with part 2 of trauma. Please share this video. Again, much love to all my family and friends. And I'm going to leave you guys with a little bit of music. If you know, we came in with Mama Thornton. If y'all remember when we came in, we had Mama Thornton playing. So let's see if we can go out with uh let's see what else we got. Let's see. Let's see who we can go out with. See we can who else we can go out with. Uh no, we did Rosetta Thorpe. And this is we finna do Big Mama Thornton now. We're gonna go out with Big Mama Thornton. Guys, and I love you guys. And I will see you guys come next week. Part 2 of trauma. Please share. And remember, guys, I love you, but God loves you best. And until next week, guys, stay strong, be healthy, and be kind.
And bring on with a big round of applause. Yeah, I feel real good.
Now, this is where You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog came from, guys. Remember this.
You ain't nothing but a hound. When Snoopy around the door. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. When Snoopy around the door. You can wag your tail, but I ain't gonna be you don't. Only you I can, but I can see through that. From Chicago, Shaky Horton, J.B. Lander, Doc Ross, and John Lee Hooker. We all got